Hey guys, Dr. Kirk here at Premier Chiropractic with another episode of Functional Friday. Today we're going to dive into hip function, okay? Something that's very, very important. Now, in general, if you look up at this picture here, this is a picture that is called the joint-by-joint approach. It's basically a contrast between where you want more mobility in your body versus where you want more stability. And it's not true 100% of the time, but it gives us a good insight as to some things that we can work on in some areas that we can stabilize and some areas that we can mobilize. If we look at the hip, it's generally in blue because we become too tight through our hips. The hip is down here. The hip is a ball and socket joint, so it should be very freely movable in that joint down here. And it actually comes up and it attaches to the pelvis there. So we want to be able to differentiate hip movement from low back movement. If you can't do that, you start to compensate by moving more in your low back, and you really don't want that. That leads to excess wear and tear happening, can result in things like degenerative changes and things of that nature. So as we look at it on the spine here, this is your pelvis, and then this is your acetabulum. So that's actually where the femoral head from your femur comes up and attaches right in there. So that thing wants to be nice and freely movable. If it's not, if you're tight through your hips, whether it be from actual joint restriction, whether it be from muscular tightness around that hip capsule, it leads to altered mechanics from which you can move, okay? So, instead of you moving nicely through your hips, so let's say this is the femoral head, and you're going to move like that, you want to be able to not move in your low back and move nicely through your hips. You start moving like this. Okay, you just start to move excessively through that low back. Okay, now as we look at it here, this needs to move nicely, this needs to be stabilized. Okay, now how can we train that as people? How can we actually train that pattern? One easy thing you can do is what's called a hip hinge. Okay, all that means is that first step to this hip hinge is stabilizing your core. So I talk about this all the time. The first step to stabilizing your core, breathe into your stomach and brace. Okay, you should be braced in a 360-degree pattern all the way around your core, not just crunching up in the front. Okay, so you're braced in front of your core, and then you actually move through your hips. Now, if you'll notice, my low back is not moving as I'm bending forward. It's just movement happening in my hips, and if you're doing it correctly, you're going to feel some tension in your hamstrings as you get to kind of that end range of your hip movement. One thing you can do to help out with this is use a dowel or like a broom or anything at home, and you can just put that behind your back, and it should have 3 points of contact on your body. It should be touching down on your butt, your thoracic spine, so your upper back up here, and then your head should be touching. Your low back should be in a nice neutral posture. Most of the time it's not going to be touching. Okay? From there, you can actually bend forward and back. Now, the things to note there, number one, the middle of my neck isn't touching, so I'm not like reaching forward and bending too much in my neck, and my low back is maintaining that nice neutral curve so that I'm able to move through my hips. So it looks just like that. That's a very easy way you can actually start to differentiate joint movement in your body, specifically hip movement from low back movement. Okay? That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already checked out our Facebook page, make sure to check it out, Premier Chiropractic here in Minot, North Dakota. If you haven't checked out our website, premierchiropracticnd.com. If you have a hip problem or any kind of problem at all, make sure to give us our clinic a call so we can get you into the office and get it taken care of now before it becomes a bigger problem later on. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and have a great day.